let's look at the forecast for Nigeria. Not looking so good at all when we see the different forecasts. I think the highest we've had has been from the World Bank, which is about 3%. We have 2.7%, and, you know, not looking good for the economic forecast for the country for 2023. And I guess the factors are very glaring. They're not hidden in any way. We see fuel subsidy. We see the fuel queue still there, you know, months after it started, in spite of the promises of the NNPC Limited. We still see those fuel queues. We hear the promise of subsidy being removed by middle of this year. And a whole lot, the issue of debt is still there. And then we just talked about the issue of the 2022 finance bill, all glaring to everyone. Let's find out how this will affect us. Talking about the forecast with Dr. Biodun Adedipe, Chief Consultant with B. Adedipe Associates Limited. Dr. Adedipe, good morning. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good morning, Bini. Thank you for having me here.
Great. So I know you've also seen all the forecasts from 2.9% to 2.7% to 3%, which are, but we have the federal government at 3.75%. That's like the highest we've seen, and people have asked how we will achieve that. But first of all, let's get your thoughts with all of the downgrades that have been hitting, not just Nigeria, to be fair. I think everybody has been hit by it. But how does it come across to you? Is it a scary picture? Is it something we can escape? Or is it going to be worse than even the forecasts?
Thank you so very much. Now, my own perspective is that in 2023, and that is a view we hold very strongly in BA Consult, that the Nigerian economy is likely to grow at between 3.27 and 3.32%. And that is, of course, coming from a number of factors. As rightly said, yes, this is not peculiar to Nigeria. Globally, like IMF said, okay, we expect a third of countries around the world to go into recession in 2023. But basically for us, the perspective is what are the major causes? What will likely make economies to tumble into recession? We put them in 5 categories. First, the Ukraine war, which has proven clearly to impact every country in the world in terms of the nature of what they supply to the world and how that supply chain tanked and affected those commodities, and therefore in turn affected the rest of us. The second major issue is to do with the pandemic, which in reality is also affecting the second largest economy in the world. If you go by the common measure of GDP, that is the Chinese economy, which of course the own government also responded to. That's a major issue. Then, of course, we look also at the issue of what I simply put as macroeconomic stability, or let me call it volatility, which is affecting countries all around the world. You know, quickly in my mind, I said, look, let's take a look at the U.S. economy. There's some good news there, but there's a very, very rife expectation that the U.S. economy, the largest in the world, will tumble into recession. And that, by all means, will affect the rest of us anyway, given the fact that its currency, US dollar, is the major trading currency around the world and major reserve currency for most countries. But there is also some glitter of hope. That is where I'm coming from. The inflation rate in US, the consumer price inflation, improved by 0.1% in December 2022. And that was the first time that will happen since May 2020. So that is some, silver lining. Then secondly, if you take the British economy among the top 6, all right, you find also that the British economy escaped recession in November, growing by 0.1% between October and November 2022. So which means by the time you profile the top 7, top 10, top 20, by the time you take top 30, you find Nigeria in that list. Okay? The fourth major issue is social divisiveness, which also is a major challenge around the world. As we speak right now, the major conversation in the US is that if the Congress does not increase the borrowing limit for the US government from $31.4 trillion, where it is now, by June this year, the US government will default in its debt obligation. So that also has implications for us very problem for the US now is that they have a divided house. So the expectation is that the Republicans are unlikely to allow that to happen. So social divisiveness is playing out there. Of course, for Nigeria, it's a major issue in an election year. Then you look around the world, take, for example, an extreme case of Argentina, where inflation rate in December 2020 was 95%. Okay? So you see that challenge all around the world. The fifth major issue is climate change. All right? So when you put all of these global disruptions into the basket, it brings you back to what you may expect. So the question is, how will all of this impact Nigeria? And that's where the issue is. So, and of course, you look at that vis-a-vis the policy direction. I'm happy that the government took a position that the Finance Act, let me call it bill for now, 2022, President says, I'm not going to assent to it until the major issues that business community and Nigerians in general and stakeholders are expressing, concerns about are resolved, which is very good. So now that is one of the major responses that can get our economy in the right direction. So the principal thing here for me, and that is what either leads an economy into recession or makes it to get out. I call it confidence. The moment economic actors lose confidence, not only in the economy itself, but in the response of its policymaker, then the economy inevitably and also inescapably will go into recession. Until that confidence returns, that is when the economy will go in a part of recovery. So for me, this year, therefore, given elections and how all these disruptions will play out and affect Nigeria, I don't see us tumbling into less than 3% growth rate in 2023. That is where we are coming from. So the question now is, how are we going to go? Election comes February. By May, hopefully, we have a new government in office end of May. And of course, the second half year, typically and historically, is where Nigerian economy grows, strongly. So by then, you have a new government in office. And if the new government also goes with speed to put its cabinet together, they will likely see our economy not go down the way of less than 3% growth rate this year.
So, Dr. Adedipe, from your perspective now, we should be able to overcome some of these risks that the World Economic Forum listed: inflation, cost of living, debt, security, and then we should be able to escape recession in 2023.
That is my own strong view. And that, of course, is coming from the background of what I said earlier. And then look at also the trajectory of the Nigerian economy. From January to September 2022, our GDP growth rate averaged 2.97%. So if you look also historically, fourth quarter is always the fastest growth we experience in GDP in Nigeria. If that plays out, then we are likely to end the year at a little over 3%. That's for 2022. Now, come to 2023, question now will be, can this disruption, even the issue of inflation, and that is where I want to say a little bit. Now, when you look at inflation in Nigeria, it is largely cost push. And that means the only way to deal with that is to ramp up production. So, and then we go back, what has happened to our economy in the last 5 to 6 years? If you look at data on Purchasing Managers Index, especially making reference, I'll make reference at this instance to one done by Stanbic IBTC. Okay, in the last 25 months consistently, the PMI has been above 50. And that points to confidence by the business community and also an expansion within the sectors covered. Manufacturing is there, services, and of course, construction and other sectors. Now, if you look at that, it means 6 months upwards. The expectation is that we are going to still produce in manufacturing. Of course, construction will still continue, and then services, because the non-oil sector has been the major driver of growth in our economy in the last 5 to 6 years. That now is the reality, and I'm happy. The government itself also officially, acceded to that. When the finance minister said that, look, we see clearly that the economy is diversified. I've said that for close to 10 years. And we've always got it wrong to say our economy is not diversified. The data proves otherwise. But I'm happy now that officially, government of Nigeria has accepted that and put it forward. So where the real issue is the external sector. And that means do we generate sufficient foreign earnings to pay for our external bills? And that is where the real challenge is. So if we are able now to ramp up domestic production, and if we are to rely on what the PMI data says, we expect expansion at least for the next 6 months. Because PMI is based on orders placed for the next 6 months by purchasing manager. So if that is the case, then at least up to June this year, we expect expansion in manufacturing and also in construction, in services, and agriculture as well. If that is the case, then the economy is likely to go the way of seeing inflation moderate in the second half of this year.
Dr. Adedipe, I guess this is a continuous conversation because that second half of the year is when the subsidy is supposed to also be removed from petrol. And so we should also anticipate the impact on that, on disposable income and all of that. And of course, as you have noted, the finance bill is awaiting the president's assent. So we do hope that it captures the complaints that the business community has been having, before it is assented to. But we have to thank you so much, Dr. Biodun Adedipe, Chief Consultant with B. Adedipe Associates Limited, for your thoughts and perspective this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, one dreaded topic that is in that finance bill is the issue of tax. Well, we'll see about that deadline coming up very soon here in Lagos. That's after the break, still here on Business Morning.